Welcome back, one and all, to Scramble Drill. I'm Josh Johnson, and over there, shaking his head, bebopping like a rock star, is Mr. Ben Watts.
How we doing?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
There's nothing like a baller intro to get you ready to rock and roll for a dope fantasy football episode.
It gets me hyped. We're changing up.
It's
we
very
got
exciting.
the new mixer and stuff like that, and so the fact that I can hear it heading into our actual recording session, it gets me hyped. So I like it.
Yeah, it sets the tone, gets things ready to rock and roll. We've got rankings debates on this episode.
Everybody loves rankings.
This is going to be a blast. We're going to be able to go through our top 24 running backs and receivers. And we're not necessarily going to break down every single ranking of every single player, but what we are going to do is go through some of the go through some of the outliers, the ones that jump out and we disagree on with a lot.
It's like we want to do this just because we did it obviously either last month or a month before, just because you need to update your Dynasty rankings. So this is updated Dynasty rankings, but now we're post-draft, so we can put rookie landing spots and know all that stuff. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it should be a fun time. So before we get into that, though, we do have some news. Are you ready to hop into the news?
Sure.
Jared Goff got himself a 4-year, $212 million extension.
So what you're saying is he is a very rich man now.
He's loaded. He got, I think, 170.
Is it only Joe Burrow is getting more than him?
That sounds right.
Checks out.
No, yes. Wait, sorry. Justin Herbert. He's the only guy getting. No, that's not right either. I think it might be Burrow.
No, it's Burrow getting, I think, 55 a year.
That's what it was.
But Goff's getting like 54.
When
you're making that much money, $1 to $2 million is so negligible. Like, it doesn't matter.
I don't know. Did you have any like knee-jerk reactions for the Lions, for any fantasy players in that offense based on this contract?
I have. For the Lions, it's a lot of money to pay Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is good. I think he earned that contract. I don't think he should be the second highest paid quarterback in the league, but it is what it is. This is how the quarterback market works. If you got to pay a guy and the guy is good, you're going to have to pay him top of the market value. So that's just what it is. For fantasy, nothing changes. The Lions offense is exactly the same as it was last year. Nothing changed. So Amon-Ra, still a top 5 receiver. Jahmyr Gibbs, still a top 5 running back. Sam Laporta, still a top 3 tight end. Jared Goff is going to be fine, just fine for fantasy. Probably top 12 to 15.
I think if nothing else, it just sort of solidified what we already knew about the offense. I think like maybe over the past couple of years, we've been looking more at contracts and the security that contracts bring to sort of like insulate our fantasy lineups. And I know that's always been the case, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just approaching contracts as more insulation than I have in the past. And I don't know exactly why that's been the case. And maybe it's because of the running back market. Like running backs are struggling so hard to get money that it's like when they do get paid, okay, they're insulated. But I'm also looking at it with quarterbacks too, because when you get a quarterback that gets paid a massive contract, like what Jared Goff got, it's signaling in large dollar bill signs from the Lions organization that he is their guy. And so everything he's been giving to you from a fantasy perspective, and by that I mean what Amon-Ra St. Brown has given you, what Jahmyr Gibbs has given you, what Sam Laporta has given you, those things are pretty much locked in for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and it's I agree with everything you said.
And Goff is not old. He's 30.
No, he's 29. You know, from like in Dynasty Superflex leagues, like you you might have felt shaky if Jared Goff was your QB2, not like for in-game purposes, like he's always been fine, like a solid top 15 quarterback. But like, I guess like, okay, if my QB1 is, I don't know, Kyler Murray, and my QB2 is Jared Goff, like I can just set that in, feel really good.
Yeah, and I think with Jared Goff, you always know when he's going to be good, and you know when he's going to be bad. It's very matchup dependent. The weeks that he's good, it makes complete sense why he was good that week. The weeks he was bad, you probably could have seen it coming. Like I remember they played Baltimore last year, and you knew going into the week, it's like, this is not a Jared Goff week.
I'm not playing.
Sure enough, he sucked. But then every time they play Seattle, it's like, this is probably a Jared Goff week. And sure enough, every single time, it's a Jared Goff week.
They're going up against Minnesota. I'm rolling him out there, boys.
That man plays subpar defenses and murders.
That Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, he's the Kirk Cousins of fantasy football.
Except Jared is better than Kirk Cousins. I don't want to hear any argument there. Like Jared wins playoffs games. Jared's been to a Super Bowl. You're
making a real life football argument.
He is better than Kirk Cousins. Not for fantasy, but he's a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins.
Okay. I was a little confused there. I was like, are we making a fantasy football argument or is this a real life argument?
I mean,
I
might be better than Kirk Cousins in fantasy too. They're about the same.
Yeah. Tomato. Zay Jones signed with the Arizona Cardinals this past week.
I care nothing about Zay Jones as a player. I don't know him as a person, so I can't go there with him. But I care nothing about him for fantasy, but I love the signing for the offense. I love it for Kyler Murray. I love it for Marvin Harrison. I love it for Trey McBride. Like it just is all good there because Zay Jones has been really good with wherever he's been at, but he's never been like a one. So he's just going to boost the offense as a whole. Marvin is locked into his number one role now, so they don't bring in amazing target competition for him. And just having that extra weapon safety blanket for Kyler, dude, I'm dangerously high on Kyler this year.
Where do you have Kyler ranked right now? I know you've done your rankings.
I've got him at, let me pull him up here. For Dynasty, I guess this is a sneak preview. We'll be doing quarterbacks and tight end next time, but I'll just go ahead and say I've got Kyler at 8, but I feel like he could go higher than that. Like I'm not going to be shocked if Kyler Murray's a top 5 quarterback this year for fantasy.
I've got him at 9, so I'm right there with you. Who do you have him over then? Because I've got him over Justin Herbert as things stand. Who do you have Kyler Murray over?
Over Justin Herbert.
Oh, is that a fact?
I do have him above Caleb Williams. Some people may disagree with that, but I have him above Caleb too.
Okay, that's the other one then. So I've got him right behind Joe Burrow, but right ahead of Justin Herbert.
I've got him right behind Anthony Richardson, but ahead of Herbert and Caleb. And it pains me to do that because you know how much I like Justin Herbert.
Yeah, no, but
Kyler with the rushing, and now he has weapons. Boys, lock in. Kyler's back.
That's terrifying. I know he's had Nuke Hopkins for stretches, but like, has Kyler Murray ever really had a stable of weapons?
I mean, he's had Nuke and Hollywood Brown.
Oh, well, yeah, no, that's true. And James Conner. Well, okay, that's fine. That's probably about the same as what he's got right now.
But I mean, look at when he had all those guys healthy. He was a top 5 quarterback for fantasy. And now you're giving him Marvin Harrison, younger Nuke Hopkins, you could argue. You give him a top 5 tight end in Trey McBride, and you give him just a solid 2 with Zay Jones. Not to mention James Conner is still there, and they bring in the most explosive running back in this class with Trey Benson. Weapons are there for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and this absolutely feels like the sort of situation where they'll add to it next year as well. Like it'll be a promising offense this year, but they'll have the ability to add a receiver in free agency or potentially in the draft next year as well. And there's pretty good receivers next year.
For redraft, Bo Kyler's pushing top 5 for me. Yeah,
he's
I know
he's
it's
there
a
for me,
bad.
too.
You're not. It's not the quote unquote right decision, but like if I'm staring there, like, okay, am I going to take Kyler or Lamar? Like, I know price wise, I'm going to rather take Kyler.
Price wise, yes. I've got Kyler ranked as QB7 for me in this coming season, QB9 in Dynasty. But I'm looking at the points projections though, and it's a very, very slim margin between him and my QB5.
Yeah. I'm gonna be high on Kyler. I can already tell you, he's looking like he's going to be a my guy for me in 2024. Like it's where he's being
I'm probably
drafted
gonna
at.
be right there with you.
I'm gonna be in on him.
Yeah, probably gonna be there with you. Zay Jones probably like by himself. I don't know. Maybe in best ball or like really deep leagues, he might be interesting.
Yeah,
it probably hurts Michael Wilson
there. Okay, look, guys, Michael Wilson was never that guy. Okay, let's stop being like the Dynasty dudes, like loving Michael Wilson. He was never that guy.
He was always a promising player that flashed talent, and when he got an opportunity, was pretty good. But he was never going to be number one.
That's fine.
He's a good rotational piece. He's a pretty darn good wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through some of these rankings?
Let's get into it.
Let the games begin.
I'm fired up.
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's go 24-1 here with the wide receivers. I'm going to rapid fire through these.
Yeah, we don't need to spend 30 minutes discussing Jamar Chase versus CeeDee Lamb. Like, they're both in tier 1. You know they're both good. Just pick whichever one you want. The right answer is Jamar Chase, but
we made a little composite. Here's how the composite list goes. At 24, we have Nico Collins. At 23, we've got Xavier Worthy. 22 is Zay Flowers. 21, T. Higgins. 20, Rashee Rice. 19, DK Metcalf. 18, DJ Moore. 17, DeVonta Smith. 16, Michael Pittman. 15, Rome Odunze. 14, Brandon Ayuk. 13, Jalen Waddle. 12, we're in our top 12 now. Chris Olave. 11, Malik Neighbors. Number 10, Tyreek Hill. Number 9, Drake London. Number 8, Garrett Wilson. Number 7, A.J. Brown. Number 6, Puka Nacua. Our top 5 Dynasty wide receivers are Marvin Harrison, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson.
that's a good top 24. There's a few
Solid.
I disagree with.
So we did make our...
Let me be like Josh. I just want to clarify. This is a composite list.
This is some of Ben's crap thrown in. We did have, there are a couple, 2 specifically, that we definitely disagreed on when the rankings bore themselves out.
If you listen to the show, you can probably guess one. Yep, that one.
Yeah, it's always going to be T. Higgins.
And look, this is how you know that I'm right about T. Higgins, okay? Look at the shirt I'm wearing. This is a South Carolina Gamecock shirt, okay? I should inherently hate and despise T. Higgins, but I don't. So that's how you know I'm right.
I don't know. You just, the way you know I'm right is you look at his season finishes every year, and that'll say everything you need to know. Ben, you've got him ranked as your wide receiver 17 in Dynasty. For me, he came out to wide receiver 25. 25 feels low.
That's a big difference.
It is a big difference. 25 did feel low. However, when I looked at the names that were over him, I was like, okay, yeah, math checks out.
It doesn't necessarily check out for me. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know it doesn't check out for you. Go ahead and give us the argument for T. Higgins at 17. Give us some context. Go to your list. Tell us who he's around.
Okay. So I'm kind of got mine broken into tiers. So tier 4 ends with Michael Pittman Jr. And then T. Higgins is kind of the beginning of tier 5. So I've got Higgins at 17, DeVonta Smith at 18, You could argue DeVonta Smith over him, and I really won't give you much pushback there. I'll be honest with you. DJ Moore at 19, DK Metcalf at 20, Xavier Worthy 21, Rashee Rice, Zay Flowers, and 24. I'll leave a mystery because we will discuss that one here in a little bit too, because that's another player we disagreed on a little bit. But they are all really close to me. But I heard you mention let's look at their season finishes. I'm like, okay. So let's look at their season finishes. DeVonta Smith, I'll give you that. He has had a top 10 season with Jalen Hurts. So if you want to go ahead and put DeVonta Smith there, that's A-okay with me. That's fine. T. Higgins was injured last year, but before that, even with injuries, he's finished as wide receiver 22, wide receiver 18, and that's with missing games. He's still 25 years old. So he's shown so far his ceiling with Jamar Chase is still a top 18 wide receiver. So you've got DK Metcalf over him, which you can argue that, but if you want to talk about season finishes, let's just check out where DK Metcalf usually finishes. And that's he hasn't had a top 10 season since 2020 with Russell Wilson. He's finished as 14, 16, and 21. So he's progressively gotten worse. And his QB is Geno Smith versus T. Higgins is Joe Burrow. So that to me, I feel is a solid pushback against him. DJ Moore, if you want to argue DJ Moore over him, again, I really won't give you a ton of pushback either. DJ Moore, we like him. He's always been good. But they just bring in a rookie quarterback. They bring in Keenan Allen, and they bring in a rookie wide receiver who was drafted in the top 10. That is extremely significant draft capital. And then Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, maybe they end up there, maybe they don't. There's so many question marks around the other guys. Like the only question mark to me with T. Higgins is injury. So when he's on the field, I think he outproduces all of those guys.
It's funny you should mention when he's on the field because we happen to have a recent season where T. Higgins played 17 games. And in those 17 games in 2022, he was the wide receiver 18 in PPR. He had 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, which is not great. It's not amazing necessarily. I think the thing with T. Higgins and what we know about T. Higgins.
You don't want T. Higgins as your wide receiver 1. I'm not going to argue that.
No.
T. Higgins is my 1.
That's not
okay, that's not good. But he's still fine. When he's healthy, he's top 20.
Yes. He is top 20. I do think with some of these other guys, like DJ Moore, I don't even think we need to argue that. Like he was wide receiver 6 last year. And I don't think you'll push back to me on that one too much. DeVonta Smith, I don't know. I think it's
I'll give you
like range
Smith.
of outcomes. Yeah, fair. It's the other ones. It's the DK Metcalf, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice.
I've always been very anti DK Metcalf. If you listen to the show, I just don't love him, man. I mean, and Russell Wilson's gone. You still got Lockett. You got JSN. Like there's target competition, and DK has progressively gotten worse every single season. Not like I guess on the field, but for fantasy, he's steadily gone down.
He's been basically T. Higgins. He's just not gotten injured as much or dealt with injuries at quarterback. But his per game numbers are pretty much the same. And I think I just happen to prefer his talent to T. Higgins. I think the thing also with T. Higgins, the reason,
let's bring that in.
That is also fair. The other thing with T. Higgins is that he will very likely have a different quarterback after next season. And so this being a dynasty rank, it's not just a 2024 thing. And the guys around him in that scenario, like Nico Collins, for example, I think it's very possible that he is the wide receiver 1 for CJ Stroud in a year's time, because I don't think Stephon Diggs is going to stick around for more than a year. It could be Tank Dell too, but it could also be Nico Collins. And both were great in different stretches throughout this past season. Xavier Worthy could end up being the wide receiver 1 for Patrick Mahomes. So could Rashee Rice. We don't know. He's a head case right now. I think part of what is scary and also alluring about T. Higgins is that he's likely going to be in a different situation this time next year. And that could mean a whole bunch of different things. It could mean an upgrade. And if he goes to a situation where it's clear that he's going to be the wide receiver 1, he would be due for an upgrade in these rankings. But right now, that situation could be a very poor situation where he's the wide receiver 2 on a team with the worst quarterback. And that would not be great. That's not what you want. So when he's not flashed, he hasn't had that one season where it came together and he finished as a top 10 guy like some of these other guys have. And so with him, I'm just not as bullish on the potential because it hasn't happened yet. Whereas even DK Metcalf, he has had that top 10 season where it came together and he dominated.
4 years ago with a different quarterback.
It's been a bit. Yeah, it's been a minute, but it did happen. And it's never happened with T. Higgins. His best finish was 18. So T. Higgins right now is basically what DJ Moore was in Carolina with bad quarterback play, except he's got Joe Burrow.
But he has,
and I know there's extenuating circumstances.
The pushback is it's Joe Burrow. Like, he's got a top 2 real life quarterback.
I know. And it still has not happened yet. And I know Joe Burrow's gotten injured, and I know T. Higgins has gotten injured, but still, we've got 4 years, and in a vacuum, it has yet to happen yet.
I guess my pushback there is it's realistically 2 years. Because T. Higgins was a rookie in 2020. Joe Burrow blew out his knee halfway through the season, so you never really got to see him explode there. Then you got back-to-back seasons with Joe Burrow healthy. Obviously, Jamar Chase burst onto the scene, was really good. So T. Higgins, 2021, wide receiver 24, wide receiver 24, but he dealt with injuries that year. Then even 2022, he dealt with injuries, was the wide receiver 18. So that's your 2 full years of a healthy Joe Burrow, and he was very consistent. And I will give you that he's never truly exploded, but he's been very consistent. And I guess that's my argument with him is, does he have he's going to be a top 10 receiver? Maybe not. He could have another quarterback in 2020 or next year, which I could argue is a good thing. Because most of the people in real life NFL circles, not fantasy, do view T. Higgins as a true number 1 receiver. So maybe he does go to a good situation. I don't think next year's receiver class is amazing. So it is very likely that T. Higgins is going to get broken off next year and get a huge contract and get a lot of money because he's going to be the best wide receiver in the free agency market. So
that's very possible. Yeah, it could happen.
Pick your side. Tell us in the comments who won.
It's funny too because like with T. Higgins, if we get new information, my opinion about him will change. And that's not a cop-out. It's just like, if he happens to go to an improved situation, the ranking will get better. But I think right now, I'm baking in a hedge, but it's not as much of a hedge because he still hasn't, I guess, shown me a reason for him to be a whole lot higher. And you've got all these rookies and second-year players coming in and producing at a very high level quickly, which is kind of the other part of it.
But I think we've also been a little bit spoiled too. Like we've been spoiled by the Garrett Wilsons and Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons of the world. Now, I think we're going to get spoiled again this year? Yeah, because Marvin Harrison Jr. exists with Kyler Murray. So that's going to keep happening, but not all of them are going to pop.
Yeah. The other one. He is your wide receiver 24. He is my wide receiver 31. It's Mr. Ladd McConkey.
Ladd McConkey.
That'll do, laddie.
Love Ladd.
I'm excited about Ladd. I'm not quite as ecstatic about Ladd as you are. Give us the we're going to do this thing again. Give us the rosy argument, and I'll rain all over your parade.
Okay. Well, here we go. So I'm looking at the guys you've got ahead of Ladd. Some of them, I agree with you. You've got Xavier Worthy ahead of him. You got T. Higgins ahead of him. You've got, but then I'm looking at some other guys here. Jordan Addison. I can't get behind Jordan Addison right now, not as the third option once TJ Hawkins is healthy with a rookie quarterback. I just can't see it. JSN's been falling down boards. Deebo Samuel, I could argue Deebo ahead of him, but I could argue that Deebo should be in my top 24, and he's not, just because we know who Deebo is. George Pickens, you've got him ahead of him. I am not a massive George Pickens fan, I'll be honest with you. But
okay, this
I'm
is
looking
interesting.
at
Let's put a pin in
Ladd's
that
situation. Okay.
Let's do like a very quick George Pickens thing, because it's interesting you mentioned that you're not a huge George Pickens fan, because I have not been a huge George Pickens fan for a while. And then over the past couple weeks have just gone back and looked at what George Pickens did last year with Kenny Pickett and with Deontay Johnson. Dude had 1,000 yards in an abysmal offense. And I do think that's worth something in your second year in the NFL.
That's fair. But I guess George Pickens just scares me as a true wide receiver one. Like he's very streaky. He's very big plays, flashy plays, but not commanding consistent volume. Sort of like
true.
DK Metcalf in a way. Like he can make the big plays. He can go out there and have 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. But then he's also the kind of guy who could disappear for a game and have 3 targets for 9 yards.
Definitely. He can.
I guess that's why it's almost like the opposite of T. Higgins. Like does he have the incredible ceiling? No, but I feel like he's very safe and consistent versus you've got those other guys are really streaky.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Pickens had a game of like 203 touchdowns or something last year.
And he can do that.
It does help.
He has that talent. But then he also will just vanish. And you're like, wait, did George Pickens, did he play? Like, oh, yeah, he played 100% of snaps.
But also, how much of that is his quarterback last year is now a backup that they traded for nothing, and the offense was like legitimately awful.
That's very true. But
that part I don't know.
People hate Russell Wilson, and Justin Fields was essentially cut by the Bears for like a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields, yes. But also Russell Wilson was not bad last year. Lost in the mix of him getting cut by the Broncos. They did not cut him because he played
in Denver,
bad.
Though. No, they hate him.
They hate him because they paid him all this money.
Him.
And they decided they did not want to pay him that amount of money. He was not cut because he sucked. In fact, you go back and look at his numbers, it was a trending thing that his numbers and Mahomes' numbers side by side were way too similar. And I know Mahomes didn't have a great year, but still, Russ was not like trash. He went and won a Super Bowl. And they said, Russ, we don't want to pay you actually, so just go sit down. And he did. Anyways, keep going with Ladd McConkey. I derailed that train.
Anyway, the person we were looking for was Ladd McConkey. So does Ladd doesn't necessarily have the production profile that you wanted, but also the Georgia offense is just really weird. They had Brock Bowers, obviously they love him, and Georgia's never been like an incredible wide receiver offense. Like who was A.D. Mitchell was at Georgia and was basically absent most of his time there. He had a few splashy plays, but you didn't really know who A.D. Mitchell was until he went to Texas. Now I know like people knew who he was, but he never broke out at Georgia versus he did at Texas. So that the production profile doesn't scare me as much with him for that reason. But the Chargers, I mean, when you listen to people talk about what kind of receiver he is, where he kills zone defenses. He's got incredible footwork. He doesn't waste motion in his routes. Like he's just very smooth, great route runner, knows where to be, knows how to get open. That feels really good because it feels like Keenan Allen and what Justin Herbert loves. Like Justin's going to love dumping to a guy there. Add into the fact that the Chargers moved up in the draft to get him. They jumped, I think, 3 or 4 teams to go trade up and get Ladd McConkey. and the fact that 52% of Justin Herbert's target and pass volume left in the offseason. Eckler, Everett, Keenan, Mike Williams, all gone. So there's an insane amount of workload open in that receiving room. And the style of receiver I think he plays, Justin Herbert is going to love. So I'm doing a little bit of projecting, but I don't feel like it's not hard to see where that projection comes from with the style of player Ladd McConkey is and the workload that he can potentially get with the Chargers.
Yeah, I think you're just one step ahead of me in that you're projecting that he's good already, and I'm not quite projecting he's as good as you are. And it's truly because I know we have the Senior Bowl where people were raving about him and he performed at the combine and he tested well and all these things. But it's still weird that he never produced to a level like he doesn't check any analytical boxes outside of his per route statistics, but like his cumulative stats, not there. They scream red flags. And I don't want to ignore them, but I do want to bake in the context of he did play at Georgia, and Georgia's funky with their wide receiver rotations. Like it was Brock Bowers who dominated, and it was just kind of like a weird, stable rotation of wide receivers. So I don't get that.
I don't want to brush off the production profile either, like to sort of agree with you. But as somebody, I just watch a lot of SEC football on Saturdays, so the Georgia offense it's weird. Like you can be an amazing talent and just not pop off at Georgia. So that's why I guess I'm saying it doesn't scare me as much as it would for a different player.
Yeah, and I guess I still have the voice in the back of my head that's like, if he was their best receiver, why wasn't he on the field more? And I can't rationalize that. I think it's just that is
Brock
what
Bowers
you say for everybody else, but you kind of have to put that thing to bed when it comes to Georgia, because they do, for whatever reason, just rotate people in, and you end up playing like 60% of the snaps, whereas everywhere else you'd play 100% of the snaps. And I don't know why that is.
You also got to think that Georgia's beating people 60-0 at halftime, so they're rolling out their 18-year-old true freshman running backs and just grinding it out the rest of the game.
That is true. That definitely does happen as well. So there are all those things. He was very good on a per route basis, though, so that you can point to that, and he does crush zone coverage, so that's good too. And he performed and was cooking people at the Senior Bowl.
He's going to be, I feel like, the guy that Justin Herbert decides just to put a hole in his chest every other play because he knows where he is.
That's very possible. The other thing, and it's the production in college. That's the one minor red flag. The other minor red flag is just what is the Chargers offense going to look like this year?
I'll give you that.
I went one way initially, just with all the reports coming out around the draft about how much they were going to pass and all this stuff. I've come off of that a little bit. Just the further we get into the offseason, the less I believe that they're going to have this great quarterback and just not throw the ball at all. If they do throw the ball a lot less, I just believe the efficiency is going to be really, really good stuff. It's a Greg Roman offense, so like it sort of bakes in efficiency a little bit. It's kind of, I don't know, like I just sort of expect it to be a light version of what the 49ers offense has been the past few years, where they throw the ball like 32nd most in the NFL out of 32 teams every year, but they end up being a very good pass offense because they're super efficient. I don't think it's going to be quite that good, but it's like a very light version of that, where, yeah, the pass volume comes down, but the efficiency comes up. Where does that leave us once those things are all put into the recipe at the end of the day? I don't really know. So that's my other minor red flag. What does the pass volume, target share, all these things look like? Because it's wide open. You got all these dudes leaving. You said 52% of the targets left? Yeah. So that's all gone, which that screams opportunity. Talent plus opportunity equals fantasy success. At the same time, I want to be a little bit careful to not go all the way in before we actually see him be good on an NFL field. But like if week 1 comes and he draws 7, 8, 9 targets, be like, okay, forget all that stuff I said before. He's good. And we'll just roll with that. But
I still feel like even if not even if we know the Chargers are going to run more, but they didn't add a bell cow running back. They didn't really add any other receivers outside of McConkey. They bring in DJ Chark, who's a career deep threat. So you got QJ and Ladd as the two, I guess, core wide receivers. QJ is, you might as well call QJ the Riddler because he's a walking question mark. I mean, we'd have no idea.
That's a
we do
good
not
one.
like that. Yeah, that was brilliant right there. Right off
That's a
the
good
bat.
one. I like that.
So with the Riddler and then DJ Chark and Josh Palmer, and Josh Palmer's fine, but Josh Palmer's not a number 1. He's not even a number 2 at this point. So and again, I might be completely dead wrong, but just with the opportunity, his play style, and even if they don't throw more, like you mentioned the efficiency, I could see them kind of building the offense around Justin Herbert in a way that I would absolutely hate, is letting Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey just do their thing, PPRing it over the middle and just driving down the field, and then they get inside the 20 and just hand the ball to Gus Edwards every time. So I would hate that for Justin Herbert, but even still in that scenario, Ladd McConkey dominates in PPR formats.
Yeah.
And again,
don't hear what I'm
projecting
not saying.
a lot. I'm projecting a lot, so I definitely get all the concerns, but I was very aggressive with my Ladd McConkey rating.
Yeah, you're in on McConkey the way I was in on DeVonta Chan this time last year.
These McConkey and Achan are going to be the best players of all time. Mark it down.
You want to go over here to running backs?
Yeah, let's make the jump.
Okie dokie. So there's 24, but it's a bit more confusing because we have players kind of lumped together. So we're just going to go names from bottom to top. So here are the list of names: Ramondre Stevenson, Alvin Kamara, Tony Pollard, Najee Harris, David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Javonte Williams, Rashad White, Trey Benson, DeAndre Swift, Josh Jacobs, James Cook, Isaiah Pacheco, Devon Achane, Kenneth Walker, Kyren Williams, Jonathan Brooks, Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and then a 3-pack of Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I don't need to spend much time on the 3-pack at the top. We know exactly why they're the 3-pack at the top. They're the most safe, consistent, and insulated values at the running back position. Next.
Yeah, they're great. Okay, the other thing here. This one, we talked about it today. Just throughout the day, we were texting back and forth about this because we both realized in doing this composite set of rankings that we are incredibly high against the grain, you would say, on Jonathan Brooks. We both have him at our Dynasty running back 8.
Dude, we did these rankings separately, and I did mine and had Jonathan Brooks at 8. I'm like, oh, Josh is going to love this. I know he loves Brooks, and I'm totally in on Brooks. I'm going to put him at running back 8. Josh is going to freak out, and you sent me yours. I'm like, well, shoot, he's just as in on him as I am.
I'm backing it up. I've been on Brooks from day one, and I'm still in on him. He is high. I think, I don't know.
We're definitely higher than consensus. I've got Fantasy Pros pulled up right now.
Okay.
They've got Brooks at 15.
Oh my goodness.
Guys.
That's foolishness.
Y'all know better than that. I guess it's the ACL. It's got to be the ACL.
It's got to be. And people are terrified of the Panthers, and it's stupid.
Dude, David Canales is like already coming out and be like, oh yeah, we're going to use him like we used Rashad White. I mean, you say what you want about Rashad White. Rashad White killed it for fantasy because he got every touch and every pass.
Yeah, he PPR'd his way to fantasy relevance, which, more power to him. The thing with Jonathan Brooks, and this is where the debate is, it's Jonathan Brooks versus Kyren Williams. People are going to freak out because they're going to be like, it's obviously Kyren Williams. Not so fast, as one Lee Corso would say. We're having to weigh in these rankings Jonathon Brooks' draft capital versus Kyren Williams' production.
Yeah.
Jonathon Brooks obviously hasn't played in the NFL yet, and Kyren Williams did not get drafted high. So it's which one do you value more after 1 year of Kyren Williams? Is it going to continue? And then how much insulated value is Jonathon Brooks going to have moving forward?
Jonathon Brooks is definitely going to have insulated value. He is in reality the only running back that the Panthers have under contract next season. I know Miles Sanders is technically under contract, but they do have an out, so I can basically guarantee you Miles Sanders is not going to be there. Chuba Hubbard is a free agent next year. So Miles Sanders is the only running back, or Jonathon Brooks is the only running back they have. They've obviously come out and stated, how much they love Jonathon Brooks. You and I both, obviously you more than me, but it wasn't like I didn't like Jonathon Brooks. I love Jonathon Brooks. It was the ACL for me. But the fact that the NFL is sending us signals here. I was only worried about him because of the ACL. Well, the Panthers traded up in the second round to get him. He is the future of their backfield. Canales has already said, how they're going to use him. And reports are saying he's going to be ready by training camp. Like he's already running. They said he's planning to start cutting again by July. So, I mean, we could be looking at sort of a Breece Hall scenario to where maybe the first 3 to 4 weeks they break him in slow. But once that knee is good to go, like he is going to get he's going to get pass catching work too, which is a big thing. And he's going to get all the rest of the volume too. Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders are nothing to me. I'm all in on Jonathon Brooks.
Yeah. And on the flip side, the Rams drafted a very good day 2 prospect in Blake Corum to compete with Kyren Williams.
Higher draft capital than Kyren Williams.
Yeah. I am. Well, how did I word it when I was texting you earlier today? I can't remember exactly what I said. It was something along the lines of, I don't want to get so scared off by his draft capital because I've been very burned before by low draft capital running backs where the team drafts their eventual replacement. And I don't know, that's not to say Blake Corum is the eventual replacement, but he is absolutely solid competition.
Yeah.
And Kyren Williams.
Look at some other guys too. Eventually talent does win out. Like people were worried about Travis Etienne last year when they brought in Tank Bigsby. Well, Travis Etienne is a far superior running back to Tank Bigsby, so Bigsby never got on the field. And they spent a day 2 pick on Tank Bigsby.
Right. But also, Travis Etienne was a first-round pick.
This is very true.
Granted, it was a previous staff, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hate Kyren, but I trust the value of these other guys more. And I trust them to hold value, but because Kyren has to go out there and be elite every single week. Otherwise, he's done. They will move off of him. They have nothing invested. The team can leave him. Versus Travis Etienne, they got the 5th round option. They got all this stuff. You've invested a ton of draft capital in him. You can't move off this guy.
That's probably a good way of putting it. It's you don't necessarily hate Kyren Williams, the player. You just aren't as convinced he's going to hold value the same way that Jonathon Brooks will, which I'm there with you. Kyren Williams is going into the 3rd year of his contract. And like, if he's great for the next 2 years, then this point is moot. It doesn't matter. But he does have to continue being great in order to pay off, or not pay off. He's got to punch above his weight because there's no team investment there. Whereas Jonathon Brooks,
he can't slip up or fall off.
Right. And, Brooks is the number 1 running back drafted this year, and it's a down class, but still the number 1 guy drafted.
And they traded up
with really
to get
good
him.
Draft capital. Yeah, like the prospect profiles, clear difference. Like Jonathon Brooks is a borderline elite running back prospect when you factor in the draft capital and the college production.
Yeah, literally the only thing holding him back was the ACL.
Yeah. He would not have been a Bijan a Gibbs, a Breece Hall kind of prospect, but he would have been and he probably already is, like he's a Kenneth Walker type prospect to me right now with the ACL. But I think his skill set translates better to the NFL than Kenneth Walker's does or did.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So if you're valuing, Kenneth Walker without all the extra stuff, without the Zach Charbonnet, without all the non-pass catching things, if you're valuing that and Kyren Williams, I mean, they're basically back-to-back right now as it is with Zach Charbonnet, with all that. It's because Kenneth Walker has held value because of his draft capital and how he's performed.
Yeah, and he's just a good player.
He's a good player, yeah. So that one, I don't know. We might look like fools because I do remember a time when we did not believe on Amon-Ra St. Brown after his rookie year, and that might be this sort of situation again. But
I would sell my soul to get Amon-Ra right now.
I had to sell Marvin Harrison, so. Okay, the other one, Rachaad White.
I was higher than you were.
Yeah, that's your that's your only thing to stand on is I liked him more than you did, but I just disliked him less than you did.
Okay, let's put this in very clear. As a player, I am not in on Rachaad White. 3.6 yards a carry. Let's not get that twisted. I don't think he's a great running back. That being said, he survived the draft. The offense is still going to give him every single touch. So I can't ignore those. I can't ignore that. So do I think he's an amazing running back? Do I think he's super talented? Not really. Is he going to be a PPR monster again? Probably.
There's definitely potential. I don't really believe in that offense this year without Dave Canales. I don't really believe in Baker Mayfield.
Another reason to believe in Jonathan Brooks is Dave Canales.
Right. I don't know. I know 2 years in a row, Rachaad White has PPR'd his way into being pretty good. But 2 years ago, it was Tom Brady who's dumping it off to him. An old Tom Brady that can't move. And last year, you have Canales, who coordinated a great offense, and Baker Mayfield had a career year and a resurgence. And Rachaad White, yes, was the RB1 for the team, but he benefited from the things around him. He was not good because he was good. He was good because the offense was good, and he was schemed into catching a buttload of passes. I don't know that all those stars align again this year. I don't think he's going to be bad, but I just am not of the belief that he's going to be a top, what was he, RB6 last year or something?
Now, I don't think that happens again. But I could definitely see him top 15. Like,
right.
Volume is king. So, and I think he's going to get all the volume. So,
yeah. So, I mean, in our composite, he ended up at like 15-ish. So,
I want to say
that's sort of, I think he's like 15, 16.
I had him at 12.
Maybe a little bit lower.
Had him at 12.
It's rich. It's rich for my blood.
You could argue me lower, all right? You could argue me. I will not I'm not a T. Higgins truther with Rachaad White. Like, I'm not going to plant my flag and say, you're not changing my mind. If you want to put Rachaad White lower down your rankings, that's A-okay by me.
Okay, last one here. Ramondre Stevenson.
Yes.
Is this a debate or a conversation? I'm not even sure.
I feel like it's more of a conversation. Ramondre wasn't in my top 24. He was in yours, but I don't think you're really planted there on Ramondre Stevenson either.
Absolutely not.
My argument is, okay, it's sort of like, Kenneth, to a much less extent, Kyren Williams, because he's a day 3 pick. The offense isn't really committed to him. They don't really feel like they want to invest in him long term. So I sort of view him as kind of a 1-year rental, because I could easily see the Patriots moving off of him. So viewing him in that sense, I'm looking at the other veteran running backs around him. I'm like, okay, if he's a 1-year rental, I'd rather have Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is probably going to score more points than he would. I'd rather have Derrick Henry. I'd rather have Joe Mixon. I'd rather have all of these guys who are much older than Ramondre, but they're probably all going to be out of the league and irrelevant around the same timeline because Ramondre Stevenson isn't going to get a second contract, at least by the Patriots. And I don't see him commanding a ton of money in free agency either. So I would rather just take the veteran who's going to outscore him.
Those are all very fair points. And you will not have a whole lot of pushback from me. I guess the thing...
I finally
the
won
thing
one
Ramondre,
for sure. This was definitely won this argument.
I guess the thing with Ramondre is, and the reason he's at 24, though not a bullish 24 at all, is that he has no competition. And like, there's still an outside chance that if he goes out and dominates, kind of like what he did 2 years ago, there's a chance he could get a cheap contract and stay with the Patriots. And if that happens, you have to move him up just because there's nobody else there.
I'll do like Rachaad White. I'll move him up then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. But yeah, I mean, if he leaves the Patriots and goes out into free agency, it is a wasteland out there. He will get nothing.
He's not getting much money, especially with a good running back class coming in next year. No, Ramondre is not getting anything in free agency.
No, he will not find any sort of anything. Like if he gets 2 years, $10 million, like has a decent year and goes and gets $10 million over 2 years, that is a win for what Ramondre Stevenson is looking at for his future. There's
that money,
not a
dude.
3 year,
Take
20 something million.
No.
The DeAndre Swift contract, that's not out there for Ramondre Stevenson.
No. The NFL told you how it felt about this year's running back class, and I feel like it's going to tell you how it feels about next year's class too when there are 0 veteran running backs signed.
Yeah, I could see that for sure happening. Anybody else you want to debate, conversate, hop into before we get out of here?
No, I was honestly impressed for the most part. We were spot on with agreed about everyone. I had Malik Neighbors a little bit higher. You had Tyreek Hill ahead of him. We both had those two guys flip-flopped. We're dead even on Olave, Waddle, Ayuk, Rome, Pittman. All 13 through 17 for us.
Yeah. It was very surprising. There was very little disagreement. There was a couple things here and there. I think the one thing that I am ashamed of is that you had DeVonta higher than I did.
And you had DeAndre Swift higher than I did. What is happening?
It's full circle.
What just happened? I was looking at my rankings. I had DeAndre Swift at 16. I was like trying to be reasonable. Like, okay, he's with a new team. It's a rookie quarterback. He got a good contract, but like, let's just temper expectations. I'll put him at 16. And I see your rankings. You got him at like 14. I'm like, what?
You were like, Josh, what are you doing?
I agree
your role in this show,
but I'm okay with it. I'm supposed to be the one making that decision.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing when it comes together. That'll do it for this episode. We'll see everybody next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Peace.